So now that I have the graph closer to what I want it to be, I need to go out and get that piece of ITXML that actually creates this. Down at the bottom of the ITXML, I can see two scale markers that have been created here. And this is the code that I essentially want my plugin to create when I am finished with this. What I'm going to do to create this is I'm actually going to take a little bit more out. I'm going to copy from the top of the graph because I need this portion to target the graph. I'm going to take all of this ITXML and copy it clear through the bottom of the graph that I'm targeting. So I'll take that and do a Control C and come back over into CenterView. Now I'll click on my Corda image and I want to add ITXML, and I'll go into the content for the ITXML and I'm going to paste in what I just copied. Now there's a lot of information here that I don't need. As far as the graph, we just need the name so that we know what we're targeting. So I'm going to take all the rest of this information out. I don't want to change its position. And I don't want to change any of the other graph settings. So I'm going to remove all the settings except for the scale markers that I care about. I'm now going to divide this into two separate pieces, so that both of the scale markers could be displayed separately, either both of them together or just one or just the other. So I'm going to take the scale marker portion and the graph name and copy that and copy that in for both of them, and then I'll take the ending portion as well and copy this on the scale marker. So I now have ITXML that will start with the name of the bar graph that it's targeting, and it will add the first scale marker, and then we end that, and then we have another one that targets the graph again, and we'll insert the second scale marker. Now we're going to go see how that works. I'll hit OK. We see the scale marker showing up. Again, it's not pretty right now, but let's go over to the Corda image. And we've added all this information in the Corda image. We need to remove that now to see that it's coming from CenterView. So I'll click on the graph. I've got these two scale markers, and I'm going to delete both of them. So our Corda image currently has no scale markers in it, but when we come back to CenterView, we should see that the ITXML that we have added is actually applying some scale markers. Now the other thing that we're seeing is the scale markers are clear down at the bottom here, and that's because the values coming from the database go up in the thousands, whereas our scale marker values are not in the thousands. And so we're going to make some changes to those. So I'm going to go into my ITXML that I just created, and I'll change the values. So this was 60. And I want to set my last year's value to be something more like 5,000. And the target value currently is 30, and we're going to set that to be 5,800. And see how that changes things. Okay, so now we have the target value and last year to date. So the first step that we generally like to take in doing a plugin is create the XML that you're trying to generate from the plugin separate from the plugin, and then it's much easier to implement when you create the plugin. In this case, we are creating XML for the ITXML tag, so this will be an ITXML plugin. But in the same way, you could create an HTML plugin or PCScript plugin which would generate content for those different tags. Okay, the next step we're going to go through then will be how we create a very simple plugin that will replace the ITXML tag that we're currently looking at. I'm going to open another dashboard here, which is our step 2. Now this dashboard looks almost identical to what we just did. The big difference between that dashboard and this one is the ITXML has no content, but the content is coming from the plugin. So we will discuss how that plugin is created now. For information on setting up the development environment to create a plugin, we have another tutorial that you can reference. I will now change over to looking at the source code for the plugin that we're currently using and explain how the plugin works. The first thing that we see in the source code is the package. That's going to be important because when you reference the plugin, and I'll go back to looking at that, you see that the very first thing that we typed was Corda.ScaleMarkerPlugin2. The first element of that plugin needs to be the package name separated by a period. And so you'll have to remember, and when you create the plugin, what the package name is that you have put that in. I'll go back to my source code. The next thing we have is the ScaleMarker Plugin 2, the name of the actual class that we've created. All plugins implement a method called getVersion. The getVersion method basically tells CenterView what APIs this plugin can support. And you can view the wiki page on this tutorial to find out more information about this. But I've selected one 4 because I'm going to use the getInclude method, as you'll see later on. The next thing I have is my getITXML routine. This is the routine that will be called to replace the contents of the ITXML tag that I have in my dashboard. And you can see that basically the code that I have here is an exact duplicate of what we did before, where we just typed in the content of the ITXML. The only difference here is now I'm creating a string buffer and essentially concatenating this string together of ITXML that I used in the previous example. And you see that the results are exactly the same, whether it's coming from the content of the ITXML or whether the content of the ITXML comes from this routine getITXML. The last thing that I have in this particular plugin is I've included support for the getIncludeXML tag. That will allow this plugin to be included as either an ITXML tag or as an include tag. And the only thing that we do with the include tag is we wrap the ITXML tag around the content that we'll get for the ITXML. And so we can see that we actually call the getITXML call here just as it would be called if we were using this as an ITXML plugin. So we'll go back again to our dashboard. And again, the only difference between this dashboard and the previous example was we are now pulling the ITXML content from a plugin. Now the other thing that you can see here is, as far as parameters, we are currently not passing any parameters into the plugin. If I click on the button next to the parameters, it's blank. We don't have any descriptions or any other information. The next example we'll go through will basically flesh this plugin out even further, providing descriptions and other information about the parameters, as well as allowing us to change some of the values that you're going to be seeing using the plugin. So that's pretty much what we have here for a very simple ITXML plugin.